Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher and we're looking at the Unholy DK. This is like the most unchanged spec of all time. This thing hasn't changed since what? Kata? Beginning of Kata? I think the spec has remained exactly the same. They are very happy with the playstyle of the Unholy DK. So if you have played one before, then there hasn't been much in any sort of changes. The only change I think this has occurred in the longest time is actually Gargoyle not requiring runic power. Yeah, that's about it in almost 2 years, 2.5 years. Anyway, if you're new to the spec and you're looking to play it, give it a try. It's an interesting spec. It's very sort of damage over time based. Not very bursty, but once you start getting everything rocking and rolling, you can actually have a really good time on this one. It was my favourite spec of the DK. I prefer it over Frost. There's a little bit more thinking to it, in my opinion anyway. Let's go over your talents. I'm going to go over your gemming briefly. More importantly, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to play this bad boy and have fun with it. Level 56, yeah, okay, so let's do this one. Plague Leech is a single target DPS increase. As I've said in pretty much every DK guide I've ever done, it's just a pain in the ass to use, and therefore if you don't use it correctly, it's actually a DPS loss. A significant one if your diseases aren't reapplied in an effective manner. Use it if you think you're a robot, I guess is what I want to say there. If you think you're like robotically good, then go ahead and use it. If not, you're going to use Roiling Blood. Roiling Blood is really cool for Unholy. We don't particularly need Unholy Blight. We can spread our diseases very, very easily. And Blood Boil, which is what Roiling Blood is based off, is part of our AoE rotation, which is when it's really important to be spreading your diseases around. You're going to be Blood Boiling passively. As such, you can go ahead and use that Roiling Blood. Level 57... It's got to be Anti-Magic Zone if you do some raiding. Anti-Magic Zone is just so good. It's amazing. Just be aware of the 3 second cast. It's only up for 3 seconds and then it's going to go ahead and disappear. So just be a little bit aware of your timing on that one. Level 58. As standard, Death's Advance, passive movement speed, on-demand boost of speed, absolutely fantastic. There is opportunities for Asphyxiate sometimes. Be aware that you can CC a mob if it's absolutely necessary, but it is going to suffer your DPS. Moving around is such a vital part of DPS that you are going to suffer, so bear that in mind. At level 60, not too bad for the Unholy DKs, the Death Pact. You have your ghoul up all the time, which means you can sack it, and you can pull it back out, or you can generally just have it all there all the time, alright? So your ghoul is always ready and available. It's not like Frost where your ghoul is only up for a certain amount of time. Your ghoul is always there. Death Pact, good. Don't like any of the others two. Do not like, do not want, do not like. Level 75, all three of these are really close. Really close. So I don't like to harp on about this. I have done in the other guides. If you've looked at any of my other DK guides, I've kind of done a big fuss about these. They're very close. I really like Runic Corruption, personally. It's my personal favourite. Blood Tap is better. It does give you more DPS if you use it correctly. And we're going to talk about that in the gameplay style, so just bear that in mind. In level 90, it is going to be usually Gorfine's Grasp. Be aware, Desecrated Ground can, in fact, get you out of certain situations whenever you need them. Alright, it can get you out of stuns and all that kind of stuff, and movement pairing effects. It can be a DPS increase if the fight is doing that kind of effect to you. Glyphs are garbage for DKs, I'm afraid, guys. They're absolute garbage for Unholy DKs. There's nothing special here. You can pick whatever you want. You're not really going to have a bad time. Some people like taking the Glyph of Festering Blood for Unholy. I have no idea why anyone would want to do that in their entire life. If you haven't got diseases up and your blood boiling away, you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. Especially if you're using Roiling Blood, it makes no fucking sense to me. Bear aware in Icebound Fortitude if you've got to block a certain amount of damage on a very regular basis. Always nice to pick that up. Other than that, nothing special. Make your arguments if you wish. The Glyphs are shit, in my opinion. The main one you should always be taking is Glyph of Army of the Dead. Your Army of the Dead stops taunting things. Please, I beg of you with my entire heart. Have that Glyph. It's important. It is. If you don't know why, just think about what it does. Okay? Awesome. Right, gearing. Gearing is exactly the same as a two-handed Frost DK, which means if you are switching between in a fight, you do not have to regem or redo anything, which is fantastic. I love it when we can swap between DPS specs on any class, not just the DK, on demand. It's like, oh, Unholy is better here. That occasion will come up, and as such, you can just switch spec, and everything stays the same. We don't have to go through the rigmarole of regemming and reforging and all that. As such, critical strike rating is the one you're going for. If you've got some yellow slots, slap some crit in there. If you've got some decent bonuses to pick up, 80 strength, 80 crit. If you do need a bit of expertise, 160 expertise, 160 crit. And, of course, crit hit. is always really nice. You want to get your hit and expertise capped as soon as possible. Get those up there so you're not dodged, you're not missing, and therefore you can go on and just focus on crits. Mastery is your secondary stat. If you do have some leftover stats out there, go and get your mastery. I recommend an add-on like Reforge Lite. You can get that from cursegaming.com, and that will sort your reforging out for you, so it's not such a huge pain in the ass. Alright, gearing very, very easy. Hit expertise cap, and then boost your crit as much as you humanly can. Now then, how do we play? This is the important stuff. Unholy has a much greater emphasis on diseases, therefore you want diseases up all the time. The big trick to Unholy is simply making sure your diseases last long enough for your outbreak to come off cooldown. So as you can see, diseases generally have a 30-second duration. As such, your outbreak has 1 minute, and the way we do that is with Festering Strike, okay? Festering Strike costs a blood and a frost rune, and it will increase the duration of your diseases. Really as simple as that. Scourge Strike, which is our main filler, along with Death Coil, is only one Unholy or Death Rune, therefore we can spam away. Now the trick to this actually comes with your Blood Tap, okay? Blood Tap can be a little bit dangerous for the player who's not comfortable with it. Blood Tap refreshes a randomly depleted rune. As such, it can refresh something like this was a Blood Rune. Now what will happen if you don't use Blood Tap is that very, very easily you'll be able to see, oh, I've got a Blood and a Frost Rune, therefore it's Festering Strike time, right? It's very easy to pick up on that. Now, the situation occurs where this happens because of Blood Tap, and in fact, this could have been a Festering Strike ability and you missed it, and therefore your outbreak's not back and all that kind of stuff can happen. It can happen very easily to screw up the rhythm of your gameplay. Alright, Blood Tap can really screw up the rhythm of your gameplay because you're just not sure, or there's no clear indication that that was actually the pair of runes that were supposed to be used on a Festering Strike. As such, you need to make some decisions sometimes thinking, yes, I could pull off an extra Scourge Strike here, but in fact the best choice, because these were supposed to be Frost and Blood runes, is it's actually a better choice for me to use that Death Rune on a Festering Strike. Now, don't think that you should spam Death Runes on Festering Strikes. That is not the purpose whatsoever. You should be using as many Death Runes on Scourge Strikes as possible, but bear in mind you can easily fuck up your rotation. So you'll run in this situation. 15 seconds left on Outbreak, my diseases ran out. And that's because I got greedy with my Blood Tap, I got greedy with my Scourge Strikes. Simple as that, alright guys? That's the trick. Just bear in mind if you take Blood Tap that can happen to you, and sometimes you are going to use a Death Rune and one of the other runes to ensure that you are keeping your diseases up. You don't want to be manually reapplying diseases. It's a huge DPS loss, it's crackers. It's absolutely crazy. The next thing I recommend for you is, if I could just refresh this, I didn't. Okay, so this little guy right here, this dude, he is one of the biggest sources of damage your class does, alright? Little Rock Leaper, or whatever yours is called, he's vital. And we need to keep him up as much as possible. So in our basic rotation, we're going to keep diseases up, and we're going to be doing our Festering Strikes and our Scourge Strikes, and then we're going to get these Death Coils to spend our runic power on, okay? So really nice and easy. Now you need to track this Shadow Infusion. At 5 stacks in Shadow Infusion, you're obviously going to be able to change your pet. You're going to get this proc that occurs, this one. And then we get to turn our little Timmy into a total badass, where he does huge damage. He does really huge damage. Advanced play of the Unholy DK comes down to measuring that. So you can see I'm actually tracking how long Dark Transformation occurs. The really good Unholy DKs will have Timmy fall out of Dark Transformation and then very, very quickly get him back and transform. So I'm just going to let this run out. What you should be looking for is, oh, I'm about to lose Dark Transformation. Therefore, I want to save my procs and my runic power to do this. And as soon as it runs out, you start hammering. You start absolutely hammering, okay? You hammer as many Death Coils in as humanly possible, because all you're trying to do is very quickly get Timmy back. So as little downtime on Timmy not being transformed as humanly possible. That is your trick. Don't be that guy who is very, very, very spammy with his spells. So he's like, oh, DPS, 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 DPS. And then suddenly you're not realizing that, in fact, one of your biggest sources of damage, which is your pet, is actually way, way out of is totally not transformed for as much time as humanly possible. So you'll be DPSing like I am, and I've got Death Coils I can fire, but I'm actually waiting, because in 1, 2, 3, now he's actually going to get the benefit of that. He's going to get the Shadow Infusion stacks. Therefore, you're going to be able to transform him really quickly, as little downtime as possible on this guy, and get him transformed again, alright? Real simple stuff like that is going to save you a lot of heartache. A lot of heartache. Believe me, your DPS will go significantly higher once you have that scenario set up. Simple stuff. You've got 2 cooldowns on Holy Frenzy and Summon Gargoyle. I've had a few emails about it because people are saying, well, on I think it's Icy Veins, good website, really like those guys, that you don't need to macro them together. That is true, but there's not much reason not to, in my opinion. I really don't see the benefit of not doing that. I've tried a couple of ways around it. It's really simple to do now, and it makes no sense to me unless there's a specific moment that you need your Gargoyle, who is an absolute badass. He does loads and loads of damage. I don't see why you don't want to time that up with cooldowns, really. It just saves you a key binding, and unless you have some specific reason not to do that, then yeah, it's not a big deal at all. Really not a big deal. Smacker it with your cooldowns, you get a nice big heavy hitting ability. Happy, happy days. Remember the simple stuff, guys, okay? You want to plan your Dark Transformation. See how many stacks he's got. Make sure that when he's about to run out of his Dark Transformation, that you are ensuring that you have some runic power ready and raring to go as much as possible, even if you have to delay a sudden doom proc or something like that, just for a couple of seconds. Not saying when it's like 14 seconds left, because you're going to get another one like that, okay? You want to just ensure that when it's about to happen, you've got as much runic power as possible. Don't cap, though. So not 4 seconds left. I'm going to save this sudden doom. I'm going to do that. I've got capped runic power, Dark Transformation off, boom, 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 turret, 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 turret. Very quickly back up to 4 stacks, as you can see there. This situation is not hard to replicate in any fight, and boom, Timmy's transformed again. Very easy. And be aware, if you are using Blood Tap on your diseases, that those randomly depleted runes can be your Frost and your Blood runes, and you don't have a clear indicator of which of the runes is actually supposed to be used for Festering Strike, and then it gets a little bit tricky. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to do just a little bit of gameplay on this guy, show you all that in action. See you later. Bye.